Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to episode number 8 of Project LS400. In this episode I'll be working under the hood, but instead of taking parts off, I'll be putting stuff back together. And something's missing here. What's going on there? Keep watching till the end this episode. Hope you like. It's the following day and it's very rainy and stormy today. Yesterday I was out riding on my bike. This is how it looked like yesterday. Now the next thing I want to do is to install the injectors and the fuel rail. But before I can do that, I have to install new rubber grommets and seal. These are the injectors. I had them tested and cleaned and they came out super nice and super clean, and the test results were also very good. They were all well within spec. 4 of them reached a 100% score, 2 I believe reached a 98, and the other 2 a 96% score. So that's very well, that's quality for you. This is one of the colors. The colors are those parts, those are in between the injector and the fuel rail. This is one of them that came off, and they have become very brittle. So I have new ones, and I have 8 new seals, and the seals go on the top heads and they seal off the fuel rail. They're the most important to prevent leakage. I got a little bit of engine oil here to make the installment of those grommets a tad easier. They are quite a tight fit. So I'll set you up and I'll put you in time-lapse mode. So there's 8 injectors, almost 30 years old, but they look and perform like brand new. So let's pop them into the car. Have an extra bit of light here. Here are the injectors. They are all numbered. It was done by the guy who tested it, and I had a test sheet, so that you can refer to a number and a test result. And I'm going to stick with his numbering. This is number 7, and that will go in cylinder number 7. So that's that. Next thing I'm going to do is to measure the inner diameter of those coolant lines, so I can find a piece of piping to stick in there to restore the routing here. This is where they install those T-pipes to have a diversion to the evaporator. Well, those are both 16 millimeter inside diameter. So what I need to do now is find a piece of piping, but 16 millimeter happens to be the standard measurement for copper pipes, for water and for gas. I'm sure I'll find something tomorrow. Next up will be to install the fuel rails. So let's get those. So it's time to toss the fuel rails in. You have to take them apart before you can install them. Old me. I had them lines with the balance lines, the coupling lines installed, but apparently you can't fit them in because EGR piping and this cable loom is in the way. So let's give it a go. The workshop manual is very specific about the way those injectors are installed. I'll take this fuel rail here. I hope it shows on camera. Just sliding very easy, and they are very specific about the positioning in relation to the fuel rail. That the injector is not tilted this way or that way, but that's installed perpendicular to the rail, so in a 90-degree angle. This coolant line, ah yeah, now I can see it. This should be on top. Darn stupid line again. See, the problem is it's in this sensor over here. If I loosen that up, I have to loosen this bracket up, tilt it backwards. There's an engine hoist hook on here, tilt it backwards, so I hope it slides in easy then. It's the following day and I made some more progress than I expected to yesterday evening. Unfortunately, I had to take the intake runners off because in the last clip you saw me searching for a insulator that goes down there on the injector. One fell in, it fell into this runner, and when I removed the intake I found it back on the intake valves over there. And I also had some trouble installing the fuel rails. This line, this hard line was in the way. So what I did, I took the intake runners back off, installed the fuel rails on the intake runners and then put it back in. Took much less effort. I installed the fuel lines between the fuel rails on the back and on the front. So next up is the intake plenum. I'll put the camera on the tripod so you can follow along. So before I put on the intake plenum, I took off the throttle body. I wanted to show you this, and especially this part over here. Usually you would have a cold start injector here, and this one doesn't have it. The threads are tapped, but a hole for the cold start injector is not drilled, and that's because that this car, although being from Belgium, was destined for Singapore, I discovered when I ordered the parts. The production date is, I believe, May 31st, 1994, and it was destined to be delivered in Singapore, and there you don't need those cold start injectors apparently, so mine doesn't have it. Fun fact. Attempt to get back in the engine bay. Great thing I can pull this off. Let me see. This'll fit. Yeah. Alright. Back on. And I hope my homemade gaskets will hold up. The next thing to do is to replace the timing belt, but there's one important thing I forgot to do, and I talked it about in the episode where I put the fuel rails in. And what I haven't done is test the fuel system. So what I'll do, I'll install the battery, switch the ignition to on, then the fuel pump should start to run, and the fuel system from the tank to the engine and back, the return lines should be pressurized, and now I can check if we have any leaks. I hope everything is okay. So what I'll do is I'll set you up on a tripod. You'll see me install the battery and then I'll switch it on, and then I can use these rearmost connectors. Let's see, the camera will focus. These rear two, I can bridge those, the outer left and the outer right, and that should trigger the fuel pump to continuously run and to pressurize the fuel system to its maximum operating pressure. Always check. Wasn't sure about the polarity. I'll just put them in loosely. There's the spokes. Well, long story short, the copper washers I installed in the fuel system apparently aren't suitable for this application, so I'll call it a day today. I'll get new aluminum washers tomorrow, and then hope it'll stop leaking. It's the following day, and as you can see, I got hold of some aluminium washers, install them on the fuel rails. So let's give it a second try to see everything is tight and not leaking, hopefully. You'll notice as soon as I switch the ignition to on, the air conditioning radiator will start to run, but you have to ignore that. Here goes nothing. So I could hear a bubbling noise, but I expect it to be air in the system coming out. I have a check now. This one's dry. That one seems to be okay. Everything here is dry and clean. So no leaks on the connections. So I managed to struggle the fan connector loose, so let's give it a second try. Sorry, I wasn't shut. I can still hear the noise. It's a small hissing noise. I would say something is leaking. But I don't see anything running down from the injectors. But I do see some bad news. I'm currently waiting for parts, and I decided to do a small project, which is to make these side marker lights operable. only the front part is in use as an indicator. These ones don't work, and in other markets like the US, Canadian and other markets, they function as a side marker. I'm gonna take this out, and then I'm going to use the rear part of this indicator and put it in there. This is an indicator I got hold of on the wreckers. I took it from a wrecking car, and I noticed it's from a Toyota started, the smallest model of the time. It is literally exactly the same as the ones on my LS. So this part, I think the markers that used, or had a side markers used exactly the same bulb and fitting and wiring. Only thing I need to do is to drill a hole in the back and copy that hole pattern in the rear of this, and do some wiring in between the running light up here to there. So the lenses for the side markers are out, and they are currently on the bench in my little shed at home. Two different things I noticed. This one is the left hand side one. I'm not really sure if it shows well on camera, but this lens is more scratched, and this is the right hand side one. You can see it in the reflection, it's much shinier. And when we turn things around, there's a small difference. See this circle over here, and there's this little foam tape over here. This is the right hand side one, where that circle is missing, and also the foam tape is missing, which leads me to believe this is a replacement side, albeit an official Toyota brand one. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter for our little experiment and task at hand. Next thing I need to do is to copy this pattern onto here. First thing I'm going to do is measure the diameter, drill the holes in, then use my Dremel tool to make these small indents and carve them out, and to check them if this bulb fits. Put a little color in the center over here so I can see my markings better. I'll use my calipers to mark off the center here, and I'll make a cross line over there to mark out the center of this. And the whole diameter is 16 millimeters, so I'm setting my calipers to 8. I'm not sure this is going to work. To find the center, I have to use this center, which is 23, so that's 11 and a half. Make a few stretches, and there you have center of that hole. I'll try to mark out the center of this. I'll drill a small pilot hole and then use my step drill to enlarge it to 16 millimeters. So I just finished dremeling the hole out, and I'll put the camera on a position so you can see how things work. It goes in only one way. I believe it's this. Then you rotate it a bit and it's secured in place, and then we should have one working side marker, almost factory. And this is how it looks. To put out the lights, you can see that there is a mirror reflector back inside, and the light is very equally distributed. When you look at it from the side, it stops about here. So it's definitely a side marker. It doesn't show too much in front of the car. It looks a lot on camera, but in reality you would have the indicator over here. So, well, that turned out nice. Very happy with it. So, I hope to end this episode with the top end rebuild, or at least the intake system rebuild, being ready for use. But I have to call it quits. I think I have to take off the whole shebang again and find out if one of the injectors is leaking. It sounds like that. So I have to take out the intake plenum, take my borescope watch and see if anything is leaking. And I also noticed that the insulator on the bottom of the number 1 injector has fall off while I try to struggle these connectors over here in. So it is what it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.